about to see the evidence in case number 03-0011-0116, one of the most gruesome murder cases I've ever seen or prosecuted.
On Tuesday, July 14th, 2015, the Stewart County Sheriff's Office went to Hall Road in Lumpkin, Stewart County, Georgia, to serve an eviction notice on Richard Byrd. When the Sheriff's Office responded, they identified a smell that they knew wasn't a good thing. When we stepped inside the cabin, the body of Mr. Byrd was on the floor. He was already in the beginning stages of decomposition. This incident was all about somebody taking a lot of rage and anger out on Mr. Byrd specifically.
Anytime you have a death investigation, what a crime scene investigator is going to do first is they're going to determine what kind of injuries there are.
There were a number of visible injuries to his head and the front of his torso and his arms that were consistent with what are categorically known as sharp force trauma.
The medical examiner testified that she had essentially stopped counting at 107 separate injuries. He had literally been hacked to death. When you see the sharp force injuries, you're looking for weapons that might inflict those kinds of injuries. When the tomahawk was found, it appeared to have blood on it. Most probable conclusion from that was that the tomahawk had been used in the death. That obviously became a very important piece of evidence.
In most of the crime scenes that I've investigated, a lot of times you'll see intentional acts committed by killers, but there's always that one thing that they don't think about. The radio wound up being a big piece of evidence in this case. The radio had been shot multiple times.
It seemed like there may have been some argument or some fuss over the volume of the stereo or something, because it just seemed to me that that's an odd place for someone to start firing a gun is in the direction of the stereo, unless it's just making noise and you want to shut it up. Every other murder case I've ever had that involved a firearm, the gun was fired in the direction of the victim. It would suggest that those shots were fired first.
The door wasn't kicked in. There wasn't a broken window. So we knew the killer and the victim had to have some very basic comfort level with each other.
The victim of the case was named Richard Byrd. Mr. Byrd lived on the same property as Mr. Eggleston. Eggleston bought the property after Byrd had signed a lease on a small cabin on that property. And there was some animosity that developed between the two of them.
They had argued several times about the radio being too loud, because I know a couple of deputies had gone out there, responded to the call.
James Eggleston was just a crotchety old fella. That was the general consensus of the folks in the community who had encountered him.
Once we began to remove the body from the scene, we identified a fired bullet on the floor beneath the body that we believed that he may have been shot, and ultimately confirmed that at autopsy that he had been shot.
When GBI found the body, that prompted them to, in fact, go search Eggleston's trailer.
It looked like somebody had packed quickly. Stuff was, sort of strewn around. Then the question becomes, where's Mr. Eggleston? You want to find him and talk to him, and he was gone. We got some credit card information, and were able to track him to a motel in Wentzville, Missouri, just outside of St. Louis.
With this being a particularly violent homicide, the police department and law enforcement agencies in Missouri utilize tactical resources to apprehend Eggleston. the SWAT team took Mr. Eggleston into custody, he was armed with a 9mm pistol. That was forensically matched and identified to be the weapon that shot and killed Mr. Byrd. He did not give us much of a statement. He was fairly antagonistic and uncooperative.
Eggleston was angry that Byrd wouldn't leave on Eggleston's terms. At some point, his anger got the best of him and he snapped. And once he started the attack, he wasn't going to let up until his victim was dead.
I think the day they arrested him, people were obviously relieved the fact that he was back here and in jail.
Mr. Byrd's laying there on the ground, defenseless, and gets hacked to death with a tomahawk. And there's never any remorse. There's no, oh my God, I can't believe I did this.